Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the first half against Arsenal of the podcast. It can't go on like this, can it?
It can.
And I'm joined today by the second half against Arsenal of the podcast. No shots and 3 more goals conceded. It got ugly, but this man certainly isn't that. It's Tom Hosty Cundell and his gorgeous moustache. It's back. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, cheers. A little bit tired. I'm feeling a little bit run down due to I don't have any holiday days essentially, but yeah, no, it's good to be on here, even if the result yesterday was not good at all. And it may have been the most head lossy, agitated I've ever been at a Leeds game since probably the Tottenham 3-0 defeat during lockdown when Alioski gave away a penalty against, I want to say Lucas Moura, who he fouled on the edge of the box and the VAR gave it. And I was like, that's not a foul in that position. But yeah, I feel like that was the last time I properly was like I was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be real, like most of the team, I don't mind me saying this, were already quite head lossy before the game.
Yeah. And that's probably why I was so bad after it anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
It was like we all kind of knew what was going to happen. As you'll all see by the title, this is the Arsenal review. And I have, in like 3 separate group chats, I think I said, yeah, this will be 5-0. And that was when I saw the lineup. And then it happened. It was kind of nice to be right, but not for the right reasons.
I think I said we're going to get spanked.
Yeah.
And then when I complained, I mean, we'll get onto it, but I complained about a certain player later on in the game, and one of my mates turned around and went, of course you had an issue with him being picked straight away, so of course you're going to pick on him. And I went, I had an issue with him because I knew this was going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I know exactly who you're on about. Anyway, what have you had for tea warming up for this? At least something nice.
Nothing. I've had a protein mousse. I haven't had a chance to cook out. I've had one of those days, like I said, because I'm feeling a little bit run down. I did have like a really large lunch, about 500 grams of chicken and rice. So that's filled me up a little. And yeah, I'll probably have something else later this evening, maybe scrambled eggs, just to keep the high protein intake. But yeah, it's just been one of those days where I've sat down and done absolutely nothing, and therefore also not actually cooked well for myself. What about yourself?
I've had a busy day as well. Different reasons. Did a bit of work.
You've had a busy day. I've had a non-busy day, but
yeah, this is nothing. What I mean.
Yeah.
It's taken it out of us in different ways. I did a bit of work, and then even though it's a Sunday, bloody hell, the Lord's Day
and a bank holiday.
Yeah, it doesn't start. I'm working tomorrow on Bank Holiday Monday, although I get paid extra for it, so it's okay. Yeah, I did the bit of work. Then watched a little bit of the early football, and then me and my brother had a few things to do, some errands to run, and then I also made a barbecue with him, and that's what I had for my tea. A couple of burgers, a couple of hot dogs, and it was absolutely unreal. So I always just like have it and I go, we should do this more, but I know it's not always the best, most nutritious meal in the world. But yeah, I enjoyed that.
It's also not the weather all the time, right? You don't have the weather to
do
it's
it. Not. At the moment it is, so it was nice eating those in the sun. But here we are. That was a nice way to cheer up a bit from yesterday, but that really took it out of us all as well. I think my brother was in a terrible mood until we actually started eating. But yeah, here we are. So first of all, should we get into some quick news before I get into anything else? Actually, no. One thing I will say is just a reminder. Some of you are already here on YouTube, listening, watching. Hello. Some of you aren't. And if you would prefer to see us in our Leeds tops on YouTube, come and look and subscribe and like all that good stuff. It really helps us out. Can't even put into words how much it does. And we've got a lot coming up as well, even though it's the international break soon, don't we, Hosty?
Yeah, mainly on Patreon though for that stuff as well, probably. So yeah, head over to there. So yeah, I've got a video that initially it was going to be a Everton review of how we build up, and instead I'm going to change it to an international release over the international window of just looking at how we're approaching these games and how we're trying to approach the Premier League after 3 games. Probably a bit of defensive stuff and a bit of attacking stuff as well. Just keep it kind of general. I think that's probably more beneficial for everyone. And I believe not you have something, but we will have a State of the Squad review.
Yes,
podcast.
post-window review. Yes.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
we kind of did a mid-season one, which we did release on YouTube. I think with that one, we'll definitely have a video of it. It might be a case that we release it later on YouTube, but if you want it early in audio format, it will be on our Patreon, probably around about the international break.
Indeed, patreon.com/ASAW Patreon for that. But yeah, news time now. A couple pieces of news. Just as we sat down to record, the first one came out, which is that James Justin is having a medical ahead of a £10 million move. £10 million fullback when you're a Premier League team, it's not that crazy, but the £10 million fullback who might not even be a starter seems like a lot of money for someone in the last year of his contract, in my view, anyway, a little bit. And I know at the start of the window for sure, there was some talk about Everton as well, and about £6 million bid was quoted then. So that feels like a little bit of a jump and maybe a small overpay. But it might just be that we've got 1 week left of the window, Hosty, and they're just like, we actually do need to get these deals done now. We just need players.
Yeah, potentially. I said to you, I was hoping that was 10 million euros. And it's a loss of translation because, maybe 8 million is a little bit better. But yeah, James Justin, he's left and right back, can play both sides. So, probably going to be a backup to, I can't see him ousting Bogle, and he's not going to oust Goodmanson. But yeah, good experience as well from the Premier League. So yeah, as long as he stays fit as well, I guess it's that's the big question mark on him again.
He's had 2 better years of fitness, that's for sure. I've done quite a bit on him, written content. He has played this is a rough ballpark, 130-ish games as a right back and about 110 as a left back, something like that, or right wing back, left wing back. So he's got plenty of experience on both sides, quite two-footed and ambipedal, I think is what the actual term is.
Correct, yeah.
Ambipedal, whichever way. So that's useful as well. And, I think he's got 99 Premier League appearances and over 100 in the Championship too. So plenty of experience and a couple of seasons, like I say, of decent injuries and form. So his form's been a little bit more consistent recently, but it's certainly not been the best since his injury issues a few years back when he did his ACL. I think he did it twice. So that was a problem. But yeah, I still don't think this is a horrible signing. It's just that I think we're maybe slightly overpaying. But at this point, I kind of do just want players. And he's 27 and he's 6 foot. So he's ticking all the boxes that we've ticked all summer. And I also have a mate that knows him. So maybe I might be able to swindle something there. Probably not. The other thing, Hosty, is Largi Ramazani. Obviously left out of the matchday squad against Arsenal, which was sad in and of itself. And then it's come out that Valencia and Carlos Corberan are keen on a loan deal. It hasn't gone through yet, but there's been a few reported, including Baron Cross today. So it might happen. It probably will happen. I think Baron Cross said it's likely. It's a shame, but we do have a lot of wingers, and there's a bit of talk about another kind of wide forward profile coming in as well.
Yeah, I guess we're all fans of Ramazani on this podcast. Obviously, Daniel Farke sees some issues within him. I am probably going to reference something of Farke later on in this podcast, and with regards to Ramazani, and the bit that upsets me with this one mainly is that there is an option on the end. It looks like there's talk of it being a free loan and then an option at the end if Valencia fancy it, and so but they're going to take all his wage. I don't imagine he's going to be on the biggest wage, which means it's not going to be the biggest PSR upside. And then let's say that Valencia decide not to take up the option, we're not going to get much of a PSR upside from it, which is one of the reasons why I'd say, ship Ramazani if you're wanting to. But yeah, it's disappointing because, especially when you're looking for outlets and creative sparks, he's got that much better than what Dan James has got. But I understand that Dan James has some stupid work ethic in defence because of his engine and whatnot, and that's obviously something which coaches really like. Same goes with Jack Harrison, and it's probably a case of there's no interest for the other wingers. There is only interest really for Ramazani.
Yeah, It's probably exactly what it is, and Farke clearly fancies other players above him now in the pecking order of whatever it is. Aronson's now obviously a wide option, probably more than he is a number. He's probably both still, but like he is seen as one of the wide options too, and he's come on off the bench twice as well. So it puts into perspective how far down the order he is probably at this moment in time. And if he has a good season, and there isn't a loan with an option, and it's just a straight loan, if we manage to swindle that like we did with Mateo Joseph, it might actually be quite good for us. Because it might be a case.
That one I'm happy with. If it's a straight loan
I'd be happy
with a bit of a fee, I'm happy with that, because I think give him a development year in La Liga at a good side under Valencia. I mean,
100%.
we know that Corberan's flexible. He's going to get him probably to work quite defensively as well, which is supposedly the issue that Farke has. And let's say that we're in the Premier League and we still have Farke next year, and Ramazani comes back and showcases something else in the defensive aspects, potentially after working with Corberan and actually playing games. Maybe we get an upside there.
Yeah, totally agree. So I would hope that it's that. He's got 3 years left in his contract. He's on a 4-year deal last summer, so maybe that is viable, and maybe that we can do that. And I hope that's the case, to be fair. But anyway, let's rip the Band-Aid off, as the Americans say.
Let's
go. We're talking about Arsenal today, 5-0. I'm sure there's quite a few people not listening to this one because they don't really fancy it, but we've always said it all stats, aren't we? Quite a lot of the best podcasts are the ones we don't win, the games that we review. So that's what we're here today to do. So we'll start off, as always, with the game summary, which is that Leeds approached the game in a new 4-3-3 shape of this 2025-26 season, which does the same as Mikel Arteta's side. There was just one alteration from the last fixture as well, with Ilya Grove in for Ethan Ampadu. Leeds mostly spent the first half camped in their own half and keeping Arsenal at arm's length in open play. They mustered 0.09 XG in the first 18 minutes until Gyökeres had a 0.44 chance that fortunately bounced his way. That meant 0.53 XG to Arsenal to Leeds' 0.17 inside that opening 20 minutes. However, despite Leeds largely being able to keep them out, the territory eventually told via Jurian Timber's goal from a set piece. Leeds continued to be forced to defend from deep, and moments of levity and relieved pressure were few and far between in the match. When forced to go longer, Leeds rarely had the ball sticking in the Arsenal half past the 20th minute, meaning that Arsenal grew as the half wore on, and then Bukayo Saka eventually made it 2-0, and the game was pretty much then done. In that half, Leeds have restricted their host to 0.87 of their 2.88 XG in the match in the first 45, as I say, but that was then very different in the second 45, of course, and Gyökeres made it 3-0 after the break, with some poor defending, it has to be said, from Jadon Bogle, Pascal Struijk and a few others. And the game plan continued to look the same for Leeds and for Arsenal as well, with Leeds unable to get any kind of a foothold and having 0 shots and attempting just 21 passes in Arsenal's half in the entire half. Who had Leeds exactly where they wanted them in the end, and a poorly dealt with set piece and then a penalty later in the game, then finished off the game for Arteta's side, although Leeds made more of the direct passes to Lucas Mecha and Noah Okafor when they came on. But it didn't matter because we were 5-0 down by the end. And that's how it all finished. Anyway, let's get into the interrogation. I'm going to ask Hosty some questions and we're both going to discuss around that. So, first of all, I'm sure we're going to get into loads of discussion here about team selection and personnel and profiles and whatever else that was possibly needed in that game. But in your view, from what you remember, what was the actual game plan in possession?
I think we wanted to, at least in that first half, the second half was kind of disregarded for me, because at least up until the second goal, I think we were trying to mix it up. I think we were trying to play in the wide areas, which we saw versus Everton, try and allow that to be away. And when Arsenal's press came, which, I mean, watching it, I said to you earlier on today, there were times when I was just like, their spacing's absolutely perfect. They're getting all their angles absolutely correct. The way they were moving up. And that's why we saw so much. Us having the ball in their half, if we ever got it in their half, we were forced back to play it back to Perry. And then from there, we had to go long. And I think we had that. I think we were settled for that. I think we looked very comfortable to go long because the players didn't try and move to be an option as much like we used to see in the Championship. If we were forced to go back to the keeper, Meslier would get his foot on the ball. The defenders would go wide to the outside of the box, make sure that they're spread, keep an option, and then someone would drop deeper and we'd create space for us to build up through the middle and then go outside. whereas this time the defenders kind of stayed where they were. So which meant the only option really was to go forward and go far up. And then the idea is to make sure that the ball's in Arsenal's half, so it's not in ours. So, for the love of God, why the hell did we have Perot, Gnonto, and James up there who don't... Well, Gnonto can, but he's not going to win it in the air against Yuri and Timber. And bless him, he tried. But Perot's not going to win against Gabriel and Saliba. And
They're
then,
the best centre pairing in the world.
100%,
just to be clear, I think that
100%. But he couldn't win aerial duels against Plymouth's centre-back pairing last season.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
how can we expect him to do it against Arsenal's? And so, for me, the setup of tactics didn't seem wrong, but the personnel to play those tactics were. And that's been my biggest gripe throughout the past 24 hours of my life.
Yes. I feel like this might be a theme as we continue to talk. And then there were the few occasions where there were moments when we were trying to use that base of Perry, Rodon, Strauch, Gurev, Tanaka, and Stack to actually build the ball out. And a couple of times, because Arsenal are just one of the best teams out of possession in the world, it didn't work. And suddenly you had players panicking a little bit or being a bit sloppy with their pass. Stack got really lucky at one stage. It didn't amount to much, but that was quite scary. And I think it was a foul.
Yeah, that all comes from the instruction that Arsenal had on Strauch.
Yeah.
Because the angle that they pressed him at cut off that line to Goodmanson every single time and forced him to go back. And then from that one into Perry only had Stack or Long, and he chose to go Long. And that was... So I do put that on Perry. It reminded me of when Brentford beat Man United 4-0 under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that time, and De Gea played it to Eriksen, and I think it was Janelt went on Eriksen, and they scored from that. It was very similar to that, and we were very lucky.
Yeah, it was. So, like you say, forced us to go long.
Yeah.
And we talked about it on the preview, and we said, you've got Dan James, who, you might be able to go long to him over the top. It might give him something to chase, and maybe a couple of moments in the time matched, and he actually got the opportunity to do that. But otherwise, it was going long to Gnonto against Timber, or what you've just said as the obvious way, which was just not a matchup, even in the Championship, that ever really suited Perot. Now, I'm not a hater of Joel Perot. I think he's a decent enough footballer, but I don't think he's a number 9. I think he is a player that really struggles when it has to be those kinds of balls. He doesn't like to jump. He doesn't like to really get into a tussle. If he was intelligent enough to avoid the tussle last season and drop a little bit deeper, it might have worked for us if we had runners in behind, and it did sometimes. But you need someone to lead the line. I've used the phrase in my writing all summer, spearhead of the attack, because you want to be the tip of the spear and you want to be right at the top of that. You don't want to be moving down the shaft and further down the pitch.
No,
you want to be at the spearhead of the attack, and Perot's not that. So it was a problem in terms of personnel as well, and we will talk about that. But yeah, how did that change at all when we went behind? Because, like I said in the game summary, Hosty, the first 20 minutes weren't an abomination. We had Strauch's chance, that he was probably the best chance of the game, apart from Gyökeres getting a bit lucky with the bounce of the ball and getting on the end of something. But other than that, we'd potentially had the best chance. We'd had 3 shots at that point, and we'd managed to kind of restrict them. It was all kind of played on our terms. But as soon as Arsenal scored a few minutes later, we just couldn't do anything, could we? So what was the issue? Or was it just the same problem the entire game, in your view?
Yeah, I think it was the same problem. I think, Arsenal just... Once Arsenal settled into it, they were fine. Once they realised exactly what we were doing, they knew how to nullify us. They started winning the second balls out wide, so there was a lot of stuff that we tried to do down the left and battle to win the ball, and that one of those chances came from it kind of breaking to Stach, I think, in the middle from the left hand side where Gnonto had won it quite well against Timber in a ground duel, and then he played it out to James, and if Gary Neville's saying on commentary as well, James, take on the man, take it to the byline, and then do something. And James just isn't doing that, and it's because he also knows he can't against this level of defenders, unfortunately. And this again is what we were saying in pre-season about Dan James, is that yes, we appreciate what he had last year as being such a big upside, but it's not that big of an upside in this league. He hasn't got the pace. Maybe it would have been 20 years ago, like I said, I think again on another podcast, where like Theo Walcott was only good because he had pace. I think he actually said he'd be a League Two footballer if he didn't have that pace at the time, 20 years ago. And that is basically like, Dan James is obviously a little bit better than that because he's not quite, otherwise he'd be a League Two footballer now. But like, that's where these issues come. And again, we're bringing it up again, but like, you get more effectiveness from Dan James if you play Mecha, because you might get a flick on that you can run onto.
Yeah,
we're not going to get that with Peru, unfortunately, because we all know Peru's best at dropping deep and playing it out, and we've seen him do that against Everton as well.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't want to dig out Dan James too much because I don't actually think it was the biggest issue here, but he's one of the problems of the attack. And Gary Neville actually nailed it at one point. There's a quote later in the match around the 70th minute mark when Okafor and Metro were on the pitch, and he said that the three starters from the championship season were just not at it, and he said as soon as these other guys they'd look a bit more functional. I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of what he said basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's clearly a problem. Obviously, I think one of the reasons we've gone for Okafor is because he's still going to have Dan James's speed, but a little more height and power, maybe a little bit more kind of thrust in the final third in terms of the consistency of his output as well. I still think there's times when Dan James is going to be useful because out of possession he's still a really good player and his speed is still useful, but how much this season compared to last, I don't know, against this opposition, and it worries me. But yeah, there were other problems as well. We've kind of answered this next one I was going to ask, which was, were we actually planning to go long via Perry, or was it an outcome poor tactical approach and or Arsenal forcing us into those situations? It's probably a mixture of those things, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Hence very few moments of meaningfully crossing the halfway line and trying to build something. But I just wanted to point out something that Farke said and get your reaction to this pre the game, because he basically, again, I'll try not to say all of this because I'll paraphrase it because it's quite long, but he said in the pre-match press conference that we went toe-to-toe with Man United and Villarreal, and we were competitive in those games. So perhaps not over the course of a long season, but in one game you can always have a chance. And there's always a good performance again to try and win as many points as possible. And he's talking about the fact that he wanted to go toe-to-toe with Arsenal here, basically. And then a little bit later on in the press conference, I got the quotes again, he was starting to sort of say that we don't want to abandon our DNA completely. He's saying that, he wants to try and possess the ball, control the ball where possible, and build attacks that way. And there were periods of the game, he said, that we might be able to control the game and control the ball. He said all these things, and did we do any of it?
No, we didn't, because, and I can't decide whether I admire him for having the belief that the players can. But the problem was, again, we probably could have done that so much better. Just if if our front three are more functional in being an outlet, it means that if the press from Arsenal would have had to think about that.
Yep.
Which means that you can build up in those patterns elsewhere as well. And so it gives you that good mix, again, as we've spoken previously. So again, I don't have an issue with him thinking that, but you've got to get it right. And I don't think going for a team, the front three that were Championship, when you've said in pre-season, our attack isn't at the level of Premier League, and then you've got at least one signing that's been with you all pre-season, and you're not even bringing them on at half-time at 2-0. That doesn't make sense to me. That's being naive. You can still do what you did with the other players, with different players. But yeah, to go back to the other questions, I didn't really answer the other bit. I do think we were trying to nick a set piece. You've got your cat. I've got Glenn sleeping next to me, but I can't really show the viewers that one. just so you know, listeners, Adam's just grabbed his cat and started stroking his cat on the YouTube stream.
This is the content you're missing out of if you're not on YouTube.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's been my biggest. That was my biggest. Wasn't even my biggest issue. There were so many issues, but that was one of the issues that I had yesterday. I don't know about you.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm not actually going to add anything apart from the fact that Farker did say, he said that we need additions. This isn't a Premier League squad as well. That was another point I was going to make later on about his quotes from the summer. Immediately after the promotion, he was like, we need to sign players, but I don't want to think about it right now. Again, I'm paraphrasing. We scored 95 goals last season, and this attack still wasn't good enough. So we did need players, and we're still going to need at least one more. So that's a problem. And yeah, you were totally spot on with one of the things you said. I just wanted to add to it, which is as soon as Arsenal knew they could press us in the way, which meant we had to go long, and as soon as they knew that we weren't going to win either the 50-50 balls in midfield, because we don't have the midfield that makes the most sense, that Ampadu, obviously injured, that's fine, but you can play another midfielder that will get in the face of the opposition, who is aggressive off the ball, who makes the game scrappy, who will fight for second balls and will win his fair share of them in Sean Longstaff. Instead, you play Gruev, and I know he's a defensive midfielder, he's got decent enough positional awareness, but he's not going to win those scraps. So that was a problem. And then, like you said, the forward line, Perot's not winning a header, and the centre backs knew that. And then James is not winning, Nonto's not winning aerial duels. So it's only if you go over their fullback, and you might have an opportunity for one of them to run in behind. We saw very few moments of that. So it basically meant that Arsenal knew at that point they could really squeeze us right up the pitch, and they could just keep us there.
I did hope that when Erdegaard went off, that their press might diminish a little, and it didn't. And so that really saddened me.
Yeah. And we said it in the preview, we've said it through the summer. You can't play the same way in the Championship as you can in the Premier League, not in every game anyway. There'll be some games this season, home and away, that we'll be able to dominate the ball and try and attack teams like we did in the Championship, but it's not going to be often. And that means you need another way. That means you need another outlet. It doesn't necessarily mean a whole new style of play completely, but it just means that to build attacks, you might need to go from back to front quickly, directly, and then feed off that, whether that is Mecha winning a flick on for a Okafor or Dan James to running behind, or whether that is maybe even Mecha. I think was it Chris Hilliam said it on Twitter. It was spot on. Like, this comes on, and two of his first moments were, the first one, he wins the ball, wins the duel. And the second one, it might be the wrong way around. The second one, he doesn't win it, but he puts a lot of pressure on them and we get a throw in. And it was like, what we've got up the pitch. We just need ways of getting up the pitch. You might not win that first contact, but if then Stack and Longstaff, and maybe if it's Ampadu when he's back, are then able to feed off the scraps after that, then we can build from there. There is something that can work then. But we didn't even try to do that. We didn't have the players to do that either. So, we didn't see, the game plan that he said. Out of possession then, Hosty, and how we defended this game, because if we're not going to possess the ball and we're not able to because of Arsenal, then how do you actually keep them out? Again, I think for the first 20 minutes was okay, and I mean okay, I don't mean great. But after that, as soon as they get a goal, you didn't feel like Leeds were going to be able to find their way back into the game in or out of possession, in my opinion.
Yeah, it just didn't work out of possession either. We couldn't really win the ball back very well. We tried to get into second duels and second balls, but it wasn't there. Like you mentioned, Longstaff is really good for sweeping up those second duels, and I think that you've mentioned Stack has performed at 6 more often than not when he's played at Hoffenheim, and for the post-match comments to be that he's an 8, and it's like on against Everton, I understood him bringing on Gruev because Stack was in a really good rhythm. We were on top of the game. Let's not ruin that.
Yeah,
but in this game, it's a new game. We can put him at 6 and we can bring on Longstaff as being the other 8. And he's really good at doing that sort of being aggressive to win the ball. And so the personnel, again, didn't work for what we wanted to do in that kind of... We dropped into a 4-5-1 sort of thing. And Gruev just was non-existent in that. And then when he was, he thought he had time like he had time in the Championship, I guess. Talking second goal. So this is the bit that really frustrated me with yesterday was Gruev gave that ball away in a very dangerous position. by doing a very stupid action, because he had 2 or 3 players to his right that he could have played it to, and I don't know who he was actually trying to toe prod it to with his left foot. I'm assuming he just didn't want to pass with his right foot because he'd already had to try and pass twice with his right foot, and we all know he does not like to do that. But he stayed on. Now Ramazani, so I'm going back to, this is the bit that we're talking about. Ramazani gave the ball away at the edge of the box, which led to a Tanaka booking, which meant 20 minutes later Tanaka couldn't make a tackle and led to Luton's equaliser, or something like that. I seem to remember what Farker said. So why has he kept Gruev on? Like, why, how are you not lambasting Gruev at this point? Right? Like, you've absolutely ousted Ramazani, and post-game you said, yeah, this is his fault. Or the next match got, and there's just inconsistencies with Farker with his man management, it seems, for me. But that's something totally different. But yeah, defensively, obviously, like that first 20 minutes, I didn't think we did too bad. We restricted them 2 set pieces, really, and
mostly.
then a Gruev mistake. And then I don't know really what happened with that third goal. That third goal, Rodon's followed Rice and found himself in the right back area. Bogle's jumped, and Strauch has tried to show him down the right. Not really done it well. I do wonder how much different that would have been if it was Biol. Just because some of the stuff which at least Tom Wilson had mentioned when he had watched Biol was those sort of areas of defending and where he finds him a little bit suspect, with him being a bit slow to turn into it.
Yeah, out wide.
Out wide. But I also wonder if Biol would have gone, would have said to himself, Gyökeres is currently going away from goal. I can make a foul here because this isn't denying a goal scoring opportunity, a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity, and makes the foul and says, we'll deal with the set piece.
Against Arsenal. But yeah, no, you're probably
well, that's the thing, isn't it, right? Like, it's probably a lesser of two evils when your defence is all out of shape, because that's essentially what led to Gyökeres being able to come back in. Strauch's not used to defending on the right hand side of centre back, so that's why he's made that mistake in my eyes, is because he's not used to shepherding down that way, or hasn't, at least for 2-3 years since he last played right centre back, I think. So yeah, that's kind of, we were just a mess, really.
Yeah. Leeds last season lost 4 games 1-0 in the league, a cup game 2-0, and another cup game 3-0. And those were our only defeats all season. So this beat all of those. It's actually the heaviest defeat since QPR 4-0. But I think this was probably more deserving than any of those. Arsenal they had us, and they knew that they had us, and they were just able to keep us pinned, as we say. So out of possession or in possession, we couldn't get any kind of foothold. But it's just like, some people might be listening and thinking, but it's lazy to say it's just team selection. Those players didn't perform those roles good enough. And I'm saying, and you're saying, that a lot of those players just weren't in the most optimum roles for them. Like, Perot's not a number 9. Stack can be an 8. I think he's really good there, but he's got an absolutely insanely good career in the Bundesliga, mostly as a defensive midfielder, as either a double pivot or a single pivot. He's played loads in both roles, bit at centre back as well. But like, he's played lots of midfield and defensive roles, and he knows his position in whichever one he's picked in. So I don't really understand not bringing in Longstaff for that reason. So to me, it's like, yeah, we'll talk about personnel now, because that is the next question then, properly, even though we've already started talking about it. To me, it's like, I genuinely do think that we would have still lost, but we would have at least tried some semblance of the game plan that we might be able to try and do against a Newcastle who've got next, or even away at like Palace. It's not going to be easy, and those kind, like, even lower and lesser games like that, we need to be able to do it, and we didn't practice it. It almost, in my opinion, is almost like it's not a free hit, I don't like using that term, but like, it's almost a practice session for what you want to try and do against worse teams. And so if we had just played some of the players that we know would have fit the profiles better, so that we have the ability to go long and more direct, or we have the ability to, Biol just boots the ball out and doesn't worry about where it goes because he knows that Stack or Longstaff is going to feed off those scraps and he's going to potentially give Rice a bit of a rough game, even though Rice is very physically good. Like, he's going to rough him up a bit and he's not going to make it easy for him to win that second ball. It's going to make it scrappy. And Metcher obviously is the big one, or Calvert-Lewin if he's fit, but he's not quite yet. Just that kind of 9 is absolutely a necessity. And so I'm more annoyed at that fact than losing 5-0 because I think if we had lost 5-0, but he tried the players that I wanted him to try, and that most of us do, to be honest, not just me, then I think all of us would have come out of that and gone, well, at least he tried it, and it's Arsenal, and like, yeah, they will do this to a few teams. Of course they will. But we didn't. We didn't even give it a go. Dan's phrasing was, and I'll pass over to you after this, he said, I'm really annoyed at Farke today. At least give us a chance. He said we're probably going to lose it, but like, at least give us a chance to get some kind of a foothold in the game at various points, to relieve some pressure on the defence, to push out 10 yards and breathe for a second. We just never really got it, and it was on top of us for the entire second half until Okafor and Metcher came on, and you felt it then. You were like, oh, at least we're breathing a bit more. And I know there's game state then, and Arsenal 4-0 up and probably taking their foot off the gas a little bit, but still, it was a bit better, and it could have been like that for the whole game.
Yeah, totally agree. Like we've said already, Metcher comes on 70. I marked it down at 72 minutes. You know, ball comes down and he holds it up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that would have been nice on 10 minutes or just after 1-0 to relieve some pressure and stuff. But yeah, we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point now, and we've spoke. I think the bit that's more annoying is that we obviously have that personnel, and the message that we've that's come through. The Athletic have done articles on our recruitment of being that it's these big physical guys. We're clearly aiming for physicality as being something, and you're coming up against the second best team in the league over the past 2 years, the best physical team in the league as well, from that point of view, the best out of possession team, and we're just going, let's use our championship attack that's technically the 21st best in the league if we're going to be in the country, if we're going to be like that, and it's just really naive and frustrating that I guess we've thought that we've recruited these players, and Farke's maybe gonna, we've seen him change to the 4-3-3, so yeah, maybe he is gonna change the personnel as well when it needs to be done, because he's got the personnel now to do it, whereas maybe last year we didn't quite have the personnel to change systems as much, and he hasn't, and that's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, and the 49ers have invested money in these signings, and they've just had to sit there watching us lose 5-0 with Beal on the bench, with Longstaff on the bench. Like, I am sure those two and Calvert-Lewin and Metcher, those ones in particular, in those three areas, centre-back, centre-mid, striker, have been signed for this very reason, for these types of games. I'm not saying you always need those types. Longstaff for against like, I don't know, Sunderland at home. That's probably a bad example being an ex-Newcastle player, but it's not as important if we know that Tanaka is probably needed for a bit of extra.
Burnley at home. Right? You don't need Longstaff. You might need Metcher and Beal, but you won't need Longstaff.
Yeah, exactly. So there can be flexibility there. You don't go into a win against Everton and play one way, and just because you then win, you then think, oh, well, I just don't think we should change it for this next game. If that's what he's doing, I don't know. If it is a stubborn thing, if it is a kind of rewarding the players kind of thing, a loyalty thing that he's doing, I don't know if it is that. But if it is that, then that's a stupid way to manage games. I'm sorry, but it is. And if that sounds a little bit arrogant, I'm sorry, but that's how I see it.
There's part of me that says if he came out and was like, these players got us promoted, they deserve their chance. Do you know what? Okay, I can kind of get on board with that, seeing as how it's the game 2. Yeah. Because it's game 2. But that's kind of like the only way that I can kind of allow it. I think if he gives it a 3 or 4 game period of where he tries them, and he says they deserve the chance, now I'm going to make the change, it's like, no, that's too late. We've lost to Newcastle, lost to Fulham, lost to Wolves, I think, is who we've got after
Yeah,
Fulham.
it is. Yeah, it is.
So that's the only kind of leeway that I'm allowing in my head.
But then, to go back to the 49ers point, they've seen us spend all this money, and they have spent it because they want us to survive and they want us to build. And in their minds, that's the be-all and end-all this season. And every game
Yaka be all and end all.
Yeah, the Yaka be-all and end-all. Seen loads of fantasy names with that in. So, yeah, every game and every point matters. And I'm not saying we go and we beat Arsenal, but what about goal difference?
Yeah.
What if we'd kept it a bit tighter and made it a bit more of a game? Maybe it was only a 2 or 3-0 loss. It would have mattered, in my opinion. Or, you are very lucky and you ride your luck for the game and you keep it to 1-0 and you maybe get a late corner and Stat whips it in and Beal and Calvert-Lewin are attacking it and one of them puts it in. Why not give these guys... I'm not saying Calvert-Lewin should be given a go, by the way. Not yet, but I get that one. But, it's just these players. We saw 9 players. And the point I want to make is Farke has signed off on every single one of those. That has been really, really clear. You talk about the Athletic and what the lines they've been putting out. One of the things that Baron Cross has been making very clear this summer, and Graham Smith as well, is that Farke has the final say on every single decision when it comes to a transfer. He has to say yes or no. So we're going to say yes to certain players. And this was the same last season with Ramazani and Schmidt and whoever else that the fans think he didn't say yes to. And it's been made clear that he did. He said yes to them, and he's saying yes to these as well. So he said, oh, yeah, I want Mecha. And I get that he might not be as match fit. I think you mentioned this before. What did he say exactly about Pirro before the game?
He said that after the game, he said that his physical output was higher than Mecha.
So I'm assuming...
I think he literally said something like his physical output is why Peru started. Yes, we could have used Lucas because of his physicality, but Peru's physical output is at a better state or something.
So I assume the translation of physical output there from what he's trying to say is he's just a bit fitter right now. He's a bit sharper.
Didn't he say last year that he doesn't listen to the medical team?
Yeah, whatever.
So now he is.
Whatever, yeah. But if you're going to sign off on Mecha, and you can play him for 60 minutes, you can play him for 65 minutes, or at least till half time or something, so we can try and stay in the game. And you don't do it, and like I say, we're going to have more to come as well. We've made 9 signings, but there's going to be at least 2 more. So he was giving him the players he asked for in the summer when he said we needed lots and lots of signings. And then you've used 3 of them. And to point out who those 3 are, that is a goalkeeper, which felt like a complete necessity after the end of last season, even if Darlow did impress. A left back, because we don't have a left back. He had to do that. He had no choice. And then Stach, who's probably our best player. He wasn't great here, but he's probably our best player. So why is someone else not being... Why is Longstaff and Mecha? Those are probably the main 2, and probably Biol as well, the other one. Why are they not giving it a go? We could have even gone with the back 5. I'm not saying I would have loved that, but we could have tried that as well. Just, it doesn't make sense to me. So I am frustrated, and I think most fans are saying the same thing. It's not a criticism because we expected to win at Arsenal or even to keep the score remotely even that far down. It's more to have the best chance in games of this nature going forward. Then we should be playing the right team that has a sticking point up front, that has an effective player that can shield the back 4, or at least a couple of them. There'll be some games I would advocate for Longstaff and Ampadu altogether, to be honest, and just really make it.
This was actually one of them until Ampadu was injured.
Yeah, I'd have made it as physical as possible. But Gruev, he might be tall, he's not physical. Tanaka, I love him. I love him so much. He's one of my favourite players, but he's about 5'10", 5'11", and he's not built very, very big and muscular and strong. Yeah. Longstaff's quite slim, but he's strong. He's when you're getting tackled by him.
Geordie strength.
So, Geordie strength indeed. So yeah, it's all of that. I think a lot of people said this. Tom, you mentioned him. He made a point that I noted down, which was that the squad isn't finished yet, and it shouldn't be yet. But we still need a couple of signings. But you can't blame that on the club, because some people are going after the recruitment department, which makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. Because Farke's been given 9 players and isn't using them all. They have recruited, and he has clearly signed off on this. And like you said, Behrens mentioned it in The Athletic. Vargas clearly signed off on the fact that he knows he needs to be a bit more adaptable and physical this season with the team. Not him being physical with the team being more physical, you know what I meant. And he just ignored it. So that's what the point that Tom made. So the specific framework just got completely ignored. And that is the main talking point of this podcast today, I guess, and what we've talked about in a lot of detail.
Well, it's I guess the argument with Farke was he's not been supported in the transfer window previously when he was at Norwich, and now it feels like he has been supported and he's just gone
absolutely
out the window.
What is it?
See, I did a big action.
I saw it. Yeah. Do we think it's arrogance? Like what is it? What would the word that you describe it as? Or is he just a bit stubborn or loyal? What is it? Is it a mixture?
Thing is, there's a word that I have in my head that I know is not correct, but like the essence of the word is kind of sums it up, and that's hubris.
Yeah.
But obviously, hubris is to do with pride, right? It's about being so proud and being a bit obnoxious
kind of works.
and stuff.
Keep going.
But yeah, and but it's more of, it's. I guess is it arrogant? It's like he thinks he knows it all, or he thinks he's better than what. But I guess that's also it's egotistical, right? I guess it's egotistical of proving that you want to prove yourself, so you're gonna every decision you'll sit by as well, and you believe that you know better, right? And I guess in a way, to be a successful coach, you have to be like that.
Yeah,
because you have to implement your ideas. So yeah, I guess it is a difficult way, but I think for me, you could still be that and could have changed it up this weekend. You could have still stuck to your game plan and changed it up to match what we were going to get. Like, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like we said, like this is important. We didn't think it would work against Arsenal necessarily, but it would have at least given us the effort to do so, and it might have had a bit more damage limitation to our goal difference as well, and that's the point. Maybe even we might have gone even longer and really pumped it up, almost rugby league style, right?
Yeah.
We might have been going, let's just boot it up there. Or is it league or union? I might be getting it wrong.
Union is territory. More you playing with territory.
Yeah, so
union.
I meant union. I haven't played for a while. I was actually all right, but I haven't played for a while. You boot it, you get it out of play, and then you swarm around the throw-in at that point, and you hope that you can do it again almost. And as soon as you've done that, you might be towards their box. You might get a foul, or you might get a corner if you're lucky, and suddenly we might have something to build on. If you have
it's what PSG do.
Yeah.
Now, from kick-off, so they kick it straight out for a throw near the corner, don't they?
Oh, yeah, I saw that the other day. Yeah, they just boot it. And it's like, well, we just want to squeeze up the pitch now. We haven't even got the opportunity to do so. So, yeah, that is frustrating. Like I said, damage limitation is a key word I want to use because one of his things at Norwich was he would just get battered sometimes. And it would just be like, well, this is just Farke's Norwich. But they might win the very occasional game and it might look all right and they actually play some football. We've got to be different. Like at this level, you will get swallowed up if you are not a bit more flexible tactically. And it just showed to me that he hasn't actually learned many lessons from his time at Norwich. I'm not going to sit here, and I made this point in the Discord, and say that Farke's not a better manager now than he was at Norwich, because I do think he's probably learned quite a bit about himself as a coach and with the players that he's had since. He's had different types of squad and different types of lineup and all of that, and it's not always looked the same. So I'm sure he has, but that doesn't mean he's, necessarily improved in the ways that we need him to. And it doesn't mean that he's suddenly going to be great all season. And so, like, this feels really early game 2 to make some sort of statement like this.
Yeah,
but honestly, I mean this. If he continues like this, to be like this, I don't know what the word is again. Like, you use hubris, you use stubborn, whatever it might be, whatever word you want to use as a listener, whatever that is. If he doesn't want to be more flexible going forward, we're going to lose more games of football, and he's going to get sacked. Because there was already the 49ers talking about it in the summer. Clearly, at least somewhere privately, they've discussed the idea of moving him on, and it got leaked, even if it wasn't fully like a definite, we're going to do this.
It wasn't even the summer, it was before we played Plymouth.
Yeah, it was like April, wasn't it? It wasn't the summer.
It was the week before. It was the week before the last. It was the start of the. We got promoted officially, and then it was Leeds are going to sack him after promotion, and it was like, oh, that's early.
So they've clearly thought about it. So they're that amenable to the idea, then surely it's not good. He's going to have a short rope this summer and going into the September, October months. He definitely is. If we lose by 4 or 5 goals against Newcastle, there'll already be question marks. There will. If we play exactly the same
100%.
way. And it's
an international break.
It's an international break as well. And also, Newcastle is almost, in some ways, not always, a light version of what Arsenal are in some ways.
Yeah.
In terms of their midfield dynamics, anyway, in terms of some of their intensity off the ball, certainly. So, it could be looking pretty rough for him. Is there anything else you wanted to say before I move on?
No, let's move on.
Do we want to quickly break down the goals? We've kind of discussed some of them. I don't know if we have to.
Discussed them. For those, I don't know if we've got any question. Let me just double check the questions from the listeners. None of the goals were Lucas Perry's fault.
Yes,
that is the one thing I want to really hammer home. I've lost my head. I may have lost my head a little bit today in the Discord with it, with a small little comment. But that's more of a build-up of a lot of years of easy blaming the goalkeeper for stuff.
Darren's proud of you right now.
I think it's so easy to blame the goalkeeper because he's the last line of defence and he's only one person. So it can be really easy to just pick on could the goalkeeper have done better? Could the keeper have done better? Saka's shot is so close and so well placed and hit with so much power. Perry's making sure he's covering his near post. And if it went in his near post, then maybe, I'd be asking some questions. But he's doing everything right, and he's put it in the most perfect spot as Saka. And I think Saka's
his weaker foot, by the way, Saka, man.
He's done that, and Saka's done that numerous times, I believe.
Such a good football.
Gyökeres's, that you could maybe question his initial positioning of him being a bit too central at that point, given where the ball had come from. But there's players with the defence being all over the place. There's players in the way of the view. He hits it in a reverse way, low. Sure, it's not the cleanest of shots. His feet maybe are a little bit planted, but he's also more He's trying to get into position to make the save, and the shots come a little bit earlier than he's expected. And he's tried to get down as quick as he can.
And
he sees it a little bit late.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of traffic.
He's seen it late, reacted slow to it because he didn't see it till late, right? That's how that reaction looks. Could have come for the corners, but the corners were so Neville said it on commentary as well. The corner, it's close to the keeper, but at this point of it's also where the players are all at, and if he comes out and he makes a meal of it that way, you're probably calling him out on it again, right? And there's that many players there. I just think it's easy. It's just easy to blame the keeper because it's the last line of defence when a lot of other stuff went wrong, especially with that Saka one. You've got Gruev giving the ball away. Goodmanson, because he's not expecting Gruev to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's then let Saka get the inside of him, and he's out of position and kind of lost him a little bit. But there's so much more, and you can also say for Perry, he's like, holy shit, how's this ball got to here? And then he's, he's got to be prepared for that and as well. That's the only thing I wanted to say on those goals.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just really quickly say, I think you can apportion quite a bit of blame around for each player at various different phases in the game and in different ways for different goals. Stack had a terrible game, and he's great. I think he's great, but he was rubbish.
I really enjoyed his last 10 minutes of where he'd just given up at certain points.
And then there was a lazy...
was just he did a lazy run for the ball. He was I couldn't bother. And then Aronson did a terrible pass. And it's a sort of pass which it was bad, but Stack could have made. He could have got to it. And he just went, I'm not putting in the effort. There's no point now.
I think he still covered the most distance over the 2 games for us, by the way. It's probably going to be a theme this season. And he was working his socks off before that, so I don't fully blame him. But there was just so many, the first goal, goodness me, so many ball watching. I think Rodon's probably the player closest to Timber in the end, probably should pick him up, but you could say a lot of them. And even if they were trying to be zonal and one of them was trying to attack the ball first, I didn't really get that. That was all a bit weird. And then, the Gyökeres first goal is just horrible. Like you mentioned, you've said all the bits, like Bogle and Rodon being out of position, Strout being pulled out because of it, and then he doesn't defend very well at all there. I think that was the main goal he was culpable for, not the first one, like what people said. The fourth one, I mean, the set pieces again, like...
It just became a scramble and we lost the scramble. That is simply it. And
it's just one of them.
Yeah.
That was a bit unlucky, to be fair, the way it just fell. But it is what it is. I don't think there's anything else to say other than one other point about Farke on this section, which is that, again, he could have made the subs earlier than he did.
Yeah.
He could have been like, it's not working. Why not try and damage limitation?
Yeah, he didn't make subs until it was 4-0.
No, doesn't make sense to me. I mean, unless Tanaka went off at 3-0, he might have, with his slight issue that might be a major issue, but we're hoping is slight, with his MCL, again, midfielder. So yeah, and also, like, just silly things in the game, by the way. Like, Tanaka, you want him as the first receiver more. If you're going to do that, if you're going to try and play him through midfield. And yet he was our highest player a lot of the time. And if that's an instruction, what on earth are we doing? Unless he wanted to connect Pirot and James to him a bit easier. But we never got it there. So it doesn't make sense to put him there. And then you've got...
Tanaka's really good at winning second balls as well, right? I think I've said before, he's got this, like,
he's intelligent.
Instinct.
It's just not physical,
So you put him up there to win the second ball, but you've got no one who can create that second ball. That was the big issue.
And then there was at times it was just like Nonto did all right with some balls that he had to deal with and turned out and looked okay at times. But there were so many occasions where Dan James and Pirot were trying to generate something and they were just either too far apart or that weren't on the same wavelength and the ball would just go missing. And it was just like, what is actually happening here? And these two have played a lot of games with each other, by the way, over the last couple of seasons. So that was all quite frustrating. But yeah, I don't think we need to take too much from the goals because, like, so many players were to blame.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the content coming. And if you want even more, you can support us over on patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. You'll get bonus podcasts, exclusive articles, and access to our Discord community, all while helping us make more of the content you love. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Right, we just had a few list of questions, not as many as last week, probably because people aren't quite as excited by a final loss to Arsenal. And also we didn't actually put it on socials. Because
I also think, looking at this, we've kind of covered a lot of things.
Yeah, we probably have.
We'll get into them quickly, I guess.
I think so, yeah. So Martin's away as well and didn't ask any questions on Twitter, which is fine. But I forgot to mention it to someone else. Anyway, yes, there's been a lot of discussion about whether we can't do much against Arsenal away. Farke made a lot of errors that made us worse than we had to be. What do you think Farke ought to have done differently, and what's the rationale taking the opponent into consideration? Asked by Michael from Canada, the one in the Discord. We've answered this, but it's the Arsenal aspect I will just quickly touch on, because Will has pointed this out on Twitter. I saw him talking about it with someone else, and he made the point in the Discord as well. And we made the point on the preview. Arsenal have dropped points in this kind of game before. They last season, it was their undoing more than, we were bad against Man City and Chelsea and Liverpool. They were good in those games. They were unbeaten in those games. They didn't lose a single one. So those weren't the ones that were the points that they dropped, which caused them to not win the title. It was Palace, Brentford, West Ham, Everton all getting points at Arsenal last season in the league. Some of those wins. Bournemouth as well. Like, some of those were wins. So you can't just be like, it's just Arsenal, we're going to lose. Arsenal have beat better teams. Yes, they have, because they do that. That's where they are better normally. Their game plan works better against better teams. It's low blocks, and we didn't play a low block with the personnel that were required to do it. I understand our fullbacks are more attacking than they are defensive, for example, but you had midfielders and centre-backs that should have come in, as we talked about. So it made no sense to me. That Arsenal comment really irks me. And it's not like Arsenal haven't ever lost a home tie in a cup tie or whatever and gone out, just by a team coming in and going, we're going to sit as deep as possible and be horrible. When Leeds were in the Championship and played at the Emirates in 2011, Robert Snodgrass scored a penalty and we drew 1-1 in a lovely blue kit. We were wearing a lovely blue kit yesterday, very reminiscent of it.
That was I think when my Facebook memories come up of that day, it is awful.
And we didn't get... we got a draw out of that, but we didn't do anything like that yesterday. So that if a team like that can do that, then why can't we compete? I don't really get it. So that's another one. don't know if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, I'll ask the next one. Yeah.
Absolutely nothing on that.
Jamie said, is one of the explanations that Farke is incredibly risk averse. This is Jamie in the Discord, one of our good friends. He said his style in the Championship when we were dominant was more about controlling games than going for the jugular against weaker teams. And he doesn't play new players until he's forced to, at which point they can gain his trust, like Gurev, or if they were his picks for us to buy. I don't know who those are, but I think I get what Jamie's point is with that. Yeah, I don't know what the exact question is, other than is his explanation for Farke that he's just risk averse? Is that what it is in the end?
Well, like last season, in the first half of the season, I felt like he wasn't too risk averse. He was happy to kind of rotate players in. You know, I think we all said there was that period around November when we had two different pairings of wingers. It was Nonto and James, and then Ramazani and Solomon, and XYZ. Like we switched up because we had midweek games and weekend games and stuff like that, and we thought, oh, you know, Farke's going to rotate and stuff. And then later on in the season, that stopped, and that I think we all kind of put that down to him being risk averse, of being he's afraid that if he makes a change, we will lose. And we were going for promotion, right? So it kind of makes sense as to why you would be there. Why that would be the case now at this point in the season, when there's currently, you'd say, nothing to lose, because as he has said, you know, the season won't be defined on one game. But if the season's not defined on one game, then why don't you try and see how something else works? If that's how you're playing this game, if you're going into this game saying it won't be defined today won't be defined by what we do, this season won't be defined by what we do today, then do something different and try those players out and get them into the squad, get them match fit. If they're not match fit, give them more than 28 minutes. You know.
I wonder, for example, if we're going to see like Metcher and Calvert-Lewin line up with Johnny Howson for the 21s at some point, because
I reckon we're going to see Johnny Howson line up for Sheffield Wednesday, considering now that we haven't got Tanaka or.
Suddenly you're going to be given a squad number.
Yeah, he's going to have to be given a squad number for League Cup at this point.
Well, we don't have to finalise our squad for the Premier League yet, so he could do that technically. I don't think he will, but he could. And I would absolutely love that, by the way, although he won't wear his number 14, which would make me a bit sad, because that is his shirt number.
Yes, he can wear 41.
Yeah, that works, which is almost his age. That's awful, isn't
it? It genuinely is, though, as well. It's like 4 years.
Yeah. I think Jamie's onto something a little bit here, but it was more like you say in the Championship. And for me, we don't have excuses this season because of a few reasons. In the Championship, it's relentless. It's Saturday, Tuesday, not every week, but most weeks. Now, you've got a whole week to prepare for games, ordinarily, unless you're playing a stupid Monday Night Football.
To be fair, yeah, I guess that's a reason then maybe why not? If you want to try and I do often try and put myself in Farke's shoes and try and think why, or a manager's shoes and think why they've made the decisions they've made, and I try and look at it and I try and evaluate what it is, and you know, that's why I've kind of said they're giving the guys who got us promoted a chance to prove themselves, sort of thing. I'm thinking that's maybe where his head was, and you know, so now you've said that, I didn't really think about the fact that we had 3 days probably, because you got a recovery day, Wednesday, Thursday, you won't play -1. That'll just be a tactics session, and then you're travelling down probably Friday night.
And but most weeks you're going to have extra time, right? That's the point. Like you've got the time to plan, so it can be that your game plan is dependent on the opposition. It doesn't have to be. This is my point. Like, it's kind of the opposite. It's like you don't have to constantly play the same team thinking that you need to build those connections in the Championship and continue to just do that when it's winning and it's motoring through. Now it can be, that was good against Everton, but it won't be against Arsenal, which I don't know why you and I and all the rest of the pod team and everyone else connected with All Stats Aren't We that was talking in our group chat could see it and not him. It just doesn't make sense to me. Why not?
I'd go as far as saying that a lot of the fans could see it. I've
had
mates who travelled down. I've had mates who travelled down who don't listen to this podcast. You know, who kind of bully me for saying stuff like inverted winger, right? and he said we should go for a back three against Arsenal. It makes sense, you know. And like, so if different views of like different types of views of football can all see this. That's what is really frustrating. I think it's more frustrating to me that everyone in the fan base I've seen has said the same thing.
And the manager in charge, who obviously in a lot of ways, in most ways,
is more qualified than everyone.
Is more qualified
supposedly.
than any of us, and knows his stuff when it. Like, I couldn't coach shape in and out of possession. Couldn't do it. I wouldn't be very good at it. But I think I could have picked an 11 that in the same tactical framework that he wanted, but with different players that would have functioned better in the game last night. And that's why I'm annoyed, because it's either he's just been a stubborn prick, no offence to him, if you're listening, Mr. Farker, no offence, or you are, for whatever reason, thinking like the Premier League is not as horribly difficult as you think it is. That doesn't make sense to me as an argument, because he has accepted a minimum of an 11 signings that we're going to make this summer. So he has accepted that the squad isn't good enough. So if you're accepting that fact, then you have to then accept that you need to change the team to be more of a Premier League team, to play these games. So it really frustrates me that he's only playing the 3 players that we mentioned. And yeah, we've done this to death now. But that if everyone else is saying it, why aren't you, mate? You are qualified more than Hosty and I. So why are you not just like, yeah, fair enough, probably should have played Mecha for 60 minutes. Even if he's not in the best condition. Yeah, fair enough. Longstaff probably would have been a better shout from the start. And maybe you bring Tanaka on later, who's a bit more creative, and maybe he can do something. Or you don't play Gruev and you play someone else. I don't know what it might be. But yeah, there are just different ways it could have gone. Or maybe it was a back 3 and you try your out ball as the wing backs. Maybe Goodmanson and Bogle, bombing down the flank with James, and you've got a second ball there almost. You can go along to James, it doesn't work out, they head it away, and Bogle's there to pick up the pieces, all that. So there were just so many solutions that he could have gone with, and he went with almost the complete wrong lineup. And as I said, before I even watched the game, my mate asked me for a score prediction before the lineups, and I gave him one, and then I revised that when I saw the lineup, and I said, I think it'll be 5-0. We've asked that, so anyone that comes out with any credit from this, so basically man of the match for you. This is really slim pickings.
Yeah, really slim pickings.
I think
maybe Mecha, maybe Mecha and Nonto. Nonto, at least, he didn't do much on the ball, but his work rate, he battled really well, I felt, and what he had to do, I think he did okay with. It's just that he wasn't given much options. And yeah, the same with Mecha when he came on, I thought he actually gave us an outlet. I generally don't think that anyone else really did anything of, like I said, I think Stack was very low down on what we're expecting of him. I do think that was also maybe a symptom of the game and everyone else around him.
Yeah.
Which probably is then also the same with everyone else.
Yeah, so one of the things I really want to hammer home is that I think people are so quick to dig out players in these kinds of games. And I think when John has banged on about this for absolutely years now, to be honest, when a collective team all together play badly, it's probably the tactics, it's probably the setup, it's probably the manager. Yeah. And I just don't think there were many at all. I actually thought Aronson was a little bit bright when he came on. I know the game state was kind of kind to him as well. Him and Mecha looked pretty decent, both of them, when they came on. Aronson was trying a few difficult passes, and he played one really, really nice sharp one straight into the feet.
Really nice. And then he played that good cross into Mecha,
I was about to say, the second one was the cross. Yeah. But the first one, he zipped it into the striker. I was like, that was a nice sharp pass quickly. And he didn't used to do that last season. No. And then he played the other one. And I was like, yeah, that's a Tanaka pass. And you don't do that one often either, mate. But thanks for trying some stuff. I guess it's easier when you're 4-5-0 down. But it's still credit to him. Starters-wise, I actually thought both fullbacks were weirdly good in moments, but really bad in others. So there were some really nice moments of Bogle or Goodmanson getting to carry the ball into some space, and then nothing would come of it after that because there were just not many options. Or they would actually defend quite well with their winger, but it didn't really matter. Nonto, like I said, was probably one of our more secure players on the ball. I mean, with Stack, for example, just to be a bit more nuanced than he was just bad. At the very least, for about 80 minutes, he was just charging around, trying to break things up and trying to make stuff happen. But it just rarely was coming off, and they were playing around him quite easily.
I'm just thinking that first 5 minutes when all of our touches were just bad. And from that moment, I was just like, we're gonna be bad. We're gonna be bad in this. We're not coming back from this. You know, there was that moment where it should have been an easy control for. I think it was Stack at the time, and I was like, all right, he's gonna go here. He's gonna collect this and go. It's a perfect time for him to push and carry it. And his first touch was that bad that I think he ended up having to go into a duel and kind of scrap for it. And at that moment, I think. I can't remember who it was, but someone in the admin chat said, "Oh God, our first touch, it's all over the place." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's seen this."
Yeah. It's just, I guess it's a real shame that we were right in the preview that this could look messy. And I said to Dan and Martin, because they were both probably more optimistic about the fact that we might make some changes. I was a little bit, I'm not going to lie. But I said to them both, are we really that sure that Farke, who last season made the fewest changes of any manager in the Championship game to game in the entire division over the course of the season, was going to suddenly do different in the Premier League? I'm not sure he was. Maybe he's going to learn from this.
I want to give Papa Mart some credit.
Yeah,
because he actually said this through pre-season.
Yeah.
That he was going to start with Strauch and Rodon. He wasn't going to play Biol.
Yeah, he did.
He said this through pre-season. He said it's Daniel Farke. He's not going to change. And I think we all kind of went, we've made these signings to play. They're going to play. And Martin was right there.
Yeah, I guess I was just backing his point up then. I was hoping we'd make more. We didn't. Let's just hope Farke learns something from this. I don't know if he will. I'm pretty confident he probably won't. I'm probably going to talk about that on the preview for Newcastle as well. But hopefully he does and he makes more changes. I guess we've also got to factor in Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup as well into our thoughts with that as well. So, yeah, but man of the match wise, like credit from the starters, I'll probably lean Nonto but it's really not a lot in it. And then from the subs, Mecha was definitely our best player, probably Aronson second. So, fair play, guys. Well done. It's really not a very high bar this week. So, yeah, I think that brings us towards the end of the podcast now. Just to remind you all, first of all, we are on YouTube. And if you are still here, like and subscribe now. Please, it's massive for us in the next sort of 4 or 5 months. It could be huge if you all start doing that on a consistent basis. And I'll explain more about that when it comes to it, but not right now. For now, can you please all go and subscribe to the Patreon if you're not already? And if you are, thank you very much. And where can they find that, Hosty?
Patreon.com/ASAW Patreon.
And like I said, that's about all that we have time for today. I'm sorry that a lot of this was kind of centered around the same topic rather than lots and lots of talk about the game itself, but we didn't want to dissect it in too much detail. It was probably more worthwhile talking about Farke and whether we think he'll change his mind and all of that. So that's
I can't believe that's happened second game in, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I can't either. I really did think he was going to change some stuff. Maybe if we'd lost Everton, he would have, but here we are. Anyway, we'll be back for a preview of the coming game against Newcastle with you next very shortly as well. So all that's left for me to say is thank you very much to Mr. Tom Hosty Cundell.
Blagadalia.
And we'll see you all next time. Have a great week. It's bank holiday, so enjoy.